Good evening, everybody. It's David Porter, LADC, and tonight I would like to read a short fictional story about a day in the life of a heroin addict. Just to give people who have never been there, who don't know anyone who's been there, a little bit about what it's like. So, this is the fictional story of Allison, a heroin addict. And this is an excerpt from the book We All Have Choices. This is a book project that I was a part of, written by Milton S. Derry, and it's available on Amazon. We All Have Choices. It's a series of short stories, uh, crime fiction, which are all interlinked and interconnected together. So here is a day in the life. I will, and also please be forewarned, this is quite graphic. This is not for children or those of you who are sensitive. A day in the life. I rolled over and grabbed my platinum spoon, a brand new sterile hypo, and a bottle of sterile distilled water, and one of the many, many tiny little plastic bags of white powder from the nightstand drawer full. Each one was marked 99% pure. It was time for breakfast. But it wasn't real. It was just a delirium dream. I didn't have any more. Allison's stomach cramped. She was nauseated but couldn't vomit anything out anymore. She was getting dry heaves. She had blown a load of explosive wet diarrhea all over the bathroom floor at one point when she was puking. She didn't have the strength to clean it up. She was covered in snot and sweat and shit, and she stank. Her head pounded and all of her teeth hurt. Her muscles, what was left of them, ached. Her joints ached. Her legs were cramping. She had a fever, was in and out of delirium, and cried constantly. She had sweated through her clothes. She had goosebumps. Her nose ran steadily, and she was trembling. When was he going to get here? That bastard. He always made her wait until she was good and sick. She knew he received her increasingly desperate texts, but he would show up when he was good and ready. Because if she was sick, she would pay a higher price, in more ways than one. There was a knock on the door. Finally. She pulled back the blind, looked out the window, and then let her dealer in. He stepped into the room and looked at her with cold disgust. What the fuck did you do? Shit yourself? It smells like shit in here. You fucking smell. It's all over the floor, she replied shamefully, and all over me. You fucking pig, he replied flatly. Do you have what I need? She asked quietly, not meeting his eyes. Do you have what I need? He asked. She handed him a $20 bill. He gave her a little plastic bag not much bigger than a postage stamp. Make it quick, he said. She cinched her belt around her left arm and started squeezing her fist. She dumped the contents of the bag into a bent and burnt spoon. She stuck her hypo in some water that was from the melted ice at the bottom of a cup of iced coffee that had been sitting on the table for the past 3 days. She squirted the liquid into the spoon, then held a lighter under the spoon until the contents of the spoon began bubbling and hissing. She stuck the needle in the puddle on the spoon and drew the liquid into the hypo. She only had one good place left. She stuck the dull hypo into an abscess on her arm, and tears squirted from her eyes, and she clenched her teeth to keep from screaming. She had to push very hard as the needle was dull. But before the plunger of the hypo was down, all the pain melted away. Her head stopped hurting. Her teeth stopped aching. Her muscles and joints stopped aching. Her cramped legs relaxed. Her sick, rolling stomach settled. Her watery eyes and running nose dried up, and a warm, quiet, peaceful feeling settled over her. She sat back in the chair and sighed with relief. You still owe me, her dealer said. I know, Allison said. Clean up first. You look disgusting. She went into the stinking bathroom and ran the shower. She cleaned shit off the floor and dropped the towel in the wastebasket. She sprayed the floor down with Lysol and wiped it up with paper towels. She dropped the towels into the wastebasket, tying the top of the liner tight. She took off her sweat-soaked sweatpants and sweatshirt and climbed into the shower and scrubbed away the sweat that covered her entire body, the snot that dried as it ran down her face, and the dried shit that was all over her ass and thighs. She scrubbed hard, it lathering herself up. It felt so good to be clean again. The smell of cocoa butter soap, the vanilla shampoo, and the hot water was so nice. She shampooed her long red hair. Freshly showered, her eyes and nose dry, her hair wet, some color in her cheeks again, she actually felt pretty again, just for a moment. It didn't last long. She brushed her teeth. She looked into her bright blue eyes in the mirror. She felt a sick disgust with herself and what she was about to do. Time to pay what I owe. She sighed wearily, put on a robe, and stepped out of the bathroom into the living room. Her dealer already had his pants down around his ankles and he was ready. He snapped his fingers and pointed at himself. She walked over and obediently knelt down, opened her mouth, and closed her mind. When he was finished, he zipped up and said, "See you soon." He looked at her and shook his head with disgust. "You fucking whore. You nasty, dirty pig." He spoke with a tired, quiet contempt. He turned, opened the door, and slammed it behind him. She locked the door and then went directly to the nearly empty fridge and found a lemon and a jar with 2 dill pickles left in it. She made sure she always had lemons and pickles, no matter what. It was important to have those for afterwards, or she would lose the tenuous grip she had on her sanity. She quickly bit into the lemon, rind and all, then ate both the pickles, trying to get the taste of her dealer out of her mouth. She sat on the couch as she munched on the pickles and drank all the briny, vinegary pickle juice, morosely looking at her diploma on the wall. It read Dartmouth University, B.A. Literature, Honors, 2006. She looked at her medal next to the diploma. First place, women's gymnastics. How her life had changed in the past 2 years. She had been running top speed at an obstacle and misjudged the distance. She ran into it full force. It broke all of her ribs on one side, bruised her liver, ruptured her spleen, and knocked the wind out of her. She couldn't even scream. She recoiled, stood white-faced for a second, and collapsed on the ground. It was the end of her ambition to go to the Olympics, and the start of what she referred to as the problem. After her splenectomy, and during months of PT, her physician gave her 5 milligram Vicodin. It didn't really help. It dialed the constant throbbing down to a tolerable level, but she couldn't sleep. Every time she rolled over, it hurt, and she woke up. So the doctor gave her Percocet next, 10 milligrams, then 20. She felt better enough to try working out again and pushed herself too hard too soon and tore an intercostal. Now she needed another surgery. Post-op, the pain was worse than ever. She would cry herself into a fitful sleep every night. Her boyfriend couldn't touch her. His touch hurt her, but he stayed with her loyally. After begging her doctor, he reluctantly wrote a prescription for 40 milligram oxycodone. It was such a comfort, her pain melted away. For 3 weeks. Then it came back again. This time it was 80 milligram oxycodone. Same deal. A few weeks of relief, then pain again. She went back to her doctor and asked for something stronger. "There isn't anything stronger," he replied, "and I don't think you're still in pain. You should be healed by now. I think you're addicted. I'm putting you on a pain contract. You only get 1 week refills at a time, weekly and random pill counts, and you'll have to take urine tests randomly every week so I can make sure you're not using anything else, and you are using the oxys and not selling them. If you test positive for any other drugs, don't test positive for oxys or run out early. I'm cutting you off." She violated the pain contract soon after, and as promised, the doctor stopped giving her all of her narcotic pain relievers. The doctor offered her 80 milligram or 800 milligram ibuprofen, but he might as well prescribe M&Ms for all the good ibuprofen did. Her co-worker at the restaurant gave her a Dilaudid. She told her to snort it. It would get in faster, relieve the pain, and and gave her a euphoric, relaxed, warm feeling that lasted for 3 or 4 hours. She loved that feeling. But the next morning she woke up and her nose was running. Oh no, I'm getting a cold, she thought, on top of everything else. Her eyes started watering and she felt warm and flushed, and sure enough, yep, I have a cold. Then she got chills and sweats and queasy and thought, oh no, even worse, I've got the flu. But this was the worst flu she ever had. It progressed so fast. Suddenly she was vomiting, she had diarrhea, she was sweating buckets. Her legs were cramping and she had a splitting headache. Maybe another one of those Dilaudid could take the edge off. She called her friend, and her friend came over and said, you don't have the flu, you're withdrawing. She didn't even know what the fuck withdrawal meant. Her friend gave her a chip of OxyContin, and she felt better at once. This is what she needed. She started buying oxys from her friend. One day, no oxys. Try this. What is it? It's heroin. I'm not doing that. I would never stick a needle in my body. Ever. You don't have to. There's another way. So she snorted it as her friend instructed her. It was incredible. It felt like an orgasm, only from the top of her head to the tips of her toes. Then she felt like she was lying in a hot tub, half asleep, so warm, so relaxed, nothing hurt. She needed more and more. After a while, she felt nothing when she snorted it. Here, let me shoot you up, her friend said. She squeezed her eyes shut and turned her head away as she held out her shaking arm. Instant counterfeit pleasure. She shot it just once. It was the best feeling she ever had, but she'd never do it again. That was so dirty and low class. She did it just one more time. She'd never do it again after that. Well, maybe just one last time. That was it. That was last year. Now she could find a vein better than most phlebotomists. The veins in her arms were all blown out, and she had sores and various stages of infection on both arms. Sometimes she shot under her tongue, between her fingers and toes, in her neck, and even in her labia. And here she was, unemployed, fired from the restaurant, living in a shitty apartment, her boyfriend long gone, her real friends long gone, her family no longer trusting her, scraping together a meager and deprived existence by living on an EBT card, heating assistance, and the occasional odd job she could find on Craigslist. Some of the jobs ended up being very odd. She went into the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. She was so pale and underweight. She had dark circles under her eyes. And then she noticed a drop of a sticky substance in the corner of her mouth. She moved closer to the mirror, focusing on it. It must have been from her nose running. How had she missed that in the shower? Then realization as to what it was. She suddenly felt so dirty, though she had just stepped out of the shower. She took another shower, soaping herself up until the hot water ran out. Her fingertips were wrinkled and her skin was red and raw. She stepped out of the shower and brushed her teeth again, and again, and again. She squeezed the last drops of toothpaste out of the tube, brushed her teeth one more time, then threw the brush in the garbage. Somehow she still didn't feel clean. She could not believe what she had sank into. She felt so disgusted with herself, so full of loathing and shame and contempt for herself. She couldn't do this anymore. She searched around for a card an ER doc had given her months ago. She called the number and someone answered. Admissions, can I help you? She said, I have a problem. Okay, so the story wraps up where, on a hopeful note, where Allison has made a long overdue phone call to a treatment facility. Now, the fictional story that I've outlined is, it's all too real in that this really happens to people. A lot of people become addicted to opiates by taking them for legitimate medical needs, but they develop tolerance and they need increasingly stronger opiates and they become addicted. The doctor cuts them off, they buy them on the street, and eventually somebody offers them heroin. And any previously held moral standards, any previously held standards of behavior will be abandoned one at a time. Just like AA talks about how recovery occurs one day at a time, addiction occurs one day at a time. Sliding into completely unacceptable behaviors, increasingly degenerate behaviors, occurs gradually. No one wakes up one morning and says, hey, I want to be a drug addict. It's a process that occurs. So I hope the story of Allison illustrates what it's like to be a heroin addict and that people will take warning from this. As I've said in my other videos, especially young people who seem to be in the place in life where they're more likely to be exposed to this. If someone ever offers you heroin, don't do it. It will change you. It will possess you like a demon. It will make your life unmanageable. No one starts out planning to be addicted. If you are taking pain medication from your doctor, be real careful. Don't take it any longer than you need it. Communicate well with your doctor about what's going on as far as your pain levels, and don't let anyone else know you even have the pain meds because people will want to buy it from you or rob you for it. And if you are involved already and are addicted, don't wait for it to get better. Seek professional help. Okay? Everyone, thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe and keep an eye on this channel if you have any suggestions for other videos about addiction, mental health, criminology, forensic psychology. Please leave it in the comments section, and I will see about making a video on the topic. I'm open to suggestions. Okay, everyone, have a good day and stay safe.